And welcome, one and all. Welcome, everybody. Happy Thursday. Hope everyone's having a great week. Great Thursday. Beautiful Thursday, actually. This is actually the coolest day of summer I've had yet. So I'm not burning up today. Thank God. But welcome, everybody. What's up? Welcome, everybody in the chat. Shout out to you guys from Instagram. Shout out to everyone from X, YouTube, Facebook. Shout out to you guys. What is up? Before we begin, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe before we get into today's show. Um, this is wild, man, because as I said on the last live, and I specifically remember saying this, and people just want to act like, especially people who are on of the opinion in defending the Acolyte and defending Disney Star Wars, they are of the opinion that I'm, that I'm just out to get everyone and whatever the case may be, which is not true, because I specifically said in my last video that this is Disney's canon. This is Disney's canon. They're going to do whatever they want to do with the show. They're going to do whatever they want. They bought the IP, they bought the franchise from George, and they declared that they were making their own canon, their own continuity within the 6 movies, continuing before and after, and that they were going to keep George's previous set of stories in mind, and that they would also take into consideration the EU and all that they can do with that, which they really kind of didn't, not at least in the capacity that we thought it would. And they this is where we are. They've done a whole bunch of spin-off shows, a whole bunch of comics and things, some of which have been great. Don't get me wrong. Now, people who are talking to me on my IG videos and on my reels are acting like like I'm saying Disney hasn't done anything good. That's not true. Disney has done some amazing, some cool things with Star Wars. I think the Star Wars comics, for the most part, were pretty good. I think the Darth Vader series is great. That's one of the best comic book runs I've ever read. I love all of the Vader comics. So I mean, thumbs up there. I couldn't really get into the High Republic like that. Not really my thing. But I'm not going to sit here and act like the Darth Vader series and some of the main Star Wars stories from the comics that they've done weren't good. And I'm also not going to act like Rogue One wasn't a masterpiece. Rogue One was an absolute masterpiece. Now, as for where you stand when it comes to, I don't know, the sequel trilogy, that's up to you, because we're not going to sit here and lie about the nature in which the sequels have been presented. We're not going to sit here and act like the impact of the sequels wasn't a bit divisive and a bit splitting. We're not going to act like The Last Jedi didn't cause this big ruckus. We're not going to act like Rise of Skywalker wasn't a retcon, even though I've already said that I think Rise of Skywalker is my favorite of the sequel trilogy. So it's not to say that Disney hasn't done some good things. It's just that we're looking at the overall scope of it. And so when we get to the Acolyte, we're also not going to pretend like the Acolyte is what caused all this controversy to begin with. These complaints about lore, these complaints about all these many different things have been going on since Disney brought the franchise. So let's not act like this all started with the Acolyte, because this was way before then. It's just been built up till now. And now the fan base has something to, quote unquote, unite over. Shout out to Star Wars Theory for that analogy, because it is true. This is something that I think so many fans have united on. And it's not just, just because Disney can do what they want with the canon, that doesn't mean that everyone's going to go along with it. It doesn't mean everyone's going to like it. Oh, well, what's the proper response to that? Oh, well, if you don't like it, then don't watch it. Dude, you go tell that to people who have invested money and invested, time into this franchise, and tell them to just simply walk away. People who've been with this franchise for years, you go tell them to just walk away and see how that goes. It's not as easy as some might think it is, because it's Star Wars, man. It's one of the biggest stories ever told. And so to expect people to just walk away from Star Wars, that's crazy. That's not going to happen. You don't just walk away from well, for some people they can, but you don't just walk away from Star Wars while it's in this state, with so many hands in the pie, so many different stories being told, quality varying from project to project. You just don't do that. You look at Game of Thrones right now. Game of Thrones has been able to consistently keep the same quality with each show, with the spinoff, with House of Dragon, and now they're filming Night of the Seven Kingdoms. They're keeping that same consistency throughout everything that they do. So what's the excuse for Star Wars to not be able to do the same? You're not going to find any. But this is just, I'm not trying to be biased. It's just, this is just the truth of the matter. What up, Echo Base? Shout out. Oh, Coach Nim. It's Coach Nim. What up, Coach Nim? Coach. He said such a great point. I've been a Star Wars fan since I was 3. I have a channel and we'll cover it. I don't like it, and all of a sudden I'm the problem. LOL. Hey, thank you. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. But hey, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Some of us have been in Star Wars for a while, and it feels crazy that I can say that as a prequel fan. But I'm even thinking about some of the OG fans. I'm thinking about people who grew up with the original trilogy. It's everyone who's grown up on this thing has something, that they once loved about this franchise. And so for now to now be told that just because you don't like something, you're the problem, or that you're a bigot, or that you're, whatever the case, I think that's absolutely crazy. And like we never had these arguments during when it was the OG versus the prequels. I see comments today where people, still say, "Oh, I don't like, the Phantom Menace, or I don't like Revengeance, I don't like, the prequels." And that's fine. Those opinions are fine. They have valid reasoning. I'm like, okay, I understand that. But that's totally different, I think, from where we are now, which is the quality of story being told. If we're telling the truth about it, that's what's at stake here. Is the quality of the story. That's what people are arguing, and it's really the politics behind what's being told. That's the problem. It's not anything else other than that, because I don't think people would have such a problem with it if Star Wars wasn't, if if they were actually just focusing on telling a good story first. I don't think it'd be such. I don't think it'd be such a. But that's not where we are. That's just not where we are. And I wish it was, because Sorry about that. We are back. We had a stream crash. So apologies about that. Don't see how that happened. Yeah. Just straight up overloaded on me. Just I do not know what's going on today. Sorry about the technical difficulties, guys. I apologize. Sorry. What is up, Dan?
Hey Eric, how you doing, man?
Hey, man. Doing good. My stream just crashed twice on me, so I had to reset it. Had to get it
Yeah,
right.
that explained all the audio cracking. I wonder what that was. If it was
The
on my
audio was
end
cracked?
or
Oh, man.
yeah.
That's going to suck in post production. Jesus.
Well, it's a good thing I stepped on by so that you can know ahead of time.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that.
Yeah. Oh, so are you excited for the Rebel Moon director's cuts?
Uh, for now, yeah, I am. I think Zach is 1 for 1 when it comes to director's cuts. Well, actually, you could say 3 for 3, 5 for 5, whatever. If you want to count all the Watchmen cuts, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. He's done ZSJL, knocked it out the park with that.
Uh-huh.
So I have no doubt in my mind that Rebel Moon is going to bring something new to the game. I have no doubt that Rebel Moon is going to absolutely be a blast.
Yeah. Zach is that guy that I may not always enjoy the theatrical release, but those alternate cuts, boy, sometimes they just make me feel okay or good.
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. Uh, Dan, let me get your perspective on this because some fans are not really buying in to what's going on with the Acolyte and with the. I'll come back to the director's cuts, but I don't think people are
Oh
really
my
buying
god,
in.
I can't escape it. I can't escape it no matter where I turn.
I
All
don't think
right,
any. I don't
shoot.
think anybody can escape it. It's too much, man. It's like
Yeah.
it's too much. It's too much because I told people this before. I said Disney's gonna do whatever they want.
Mhm.
They're gonna do whatever they want because they bought the franchise and they started their own canon. They're gonna
They
do
did.
whatever they want.
You know,
So
you know what's ironic with Eric?
what's that?
The moment that guy in the Acolyte interviews before the show was released said Star Wars isn't about good and evil, which to me was a slap in the face to everything Star Wars. I personally told myself, I'm not watching the show. And I have not seen this show. I've seen small clips, I've
Yeah,
seen photos, I haven't watched the show. But the irony is that despite me not watching the show, I have so many opinions on the show because of the lore it's covering. And due to the lore it's covering, I have all these complex thoughts about a show I haven't seen. It's the
right.
funniest shit ever.
Yeah, I told they're coming for the lore heads, man. It's all about, and to others it might not matter as much because they're like, man, how does it impact the show? And I'm like, well, even if it's something as small as that, it's still, that's still something that should be taken care of with the utmost care because you're talking about a time period that's so close to the Phantom Menace, like 100 something years out, and so you have to really take care of the detail in which you do. Now, I said this. I said I'll be the first to admit that I'm wrong if at the end of the Acolyte it just turns out it was some dark side faction or whatever, and it wasn't the Sith. But if I'm not wrong, or if fans are not wrong, and this person that they're serving is a Sith, it's gonna be some trouble because now you put Ki-Adi-Mundi in a place that even contradicts the original 6 movies. So it's
Yeah.
not, at this point, it's not even about the EU or any other canon. It's about the movies now. Now you're actively, contradicting movies now,
Yeah, I'm not
and that's a
bothered, man.
problem.
I say I'm not bothered because they've been contradicting movies for what the past 10 years, in my
Long
opinion.
time, very long time.
Yeah. So it's like now it's like I don't I like it's like when you get desensitized, I guess.
Something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's something
So
like that.
you were asking my perspective on what the show itself or a particular thing in the show?
I mean, just as it compares to like what
Yeah.
it's doing, because I know that if you watch the show, I think you probably claw your eyes out if you watched it more than
Yeah,
I
yeah.
did.
Honestly, I was a smart one, avoiding it.
Yeah, I think you did the right. I think you did the right thing.
Well, to tell you, the only thing on my mind when it comes to the show that's really been a topic because it keeps coming my way is the surprise of witches in Star Wars, which I'm like, witches have been in Star Wars since those Ewok movies that everyone decides not to talk about unless they're like, oh yeah, there were Ewok movies.
Oh, one of those.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, witches aren't new to Star Wars, no, and magic isn't either. So technically, when Dave Filoni told Leslie Headland that there were witches that used magic in the High Republic era, at least according to based on what him and Lucas were doing, he's not really lying. He's telling the truth.
Yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
yeah, the issue I have isn't that there are witches in the Acolyte. It's that the witches are cringe. They are cringe. These witches are cringe,
Yeah.
and it's like look at what the Night Sisters did. Look at their enchanted stuff. They
Yeah.
were like saying some like weird satanic alien foreign chants that sound very witch-like. But in this
Don't
show,
even know what that means. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, exactly. But in this show, it's the power of one, the power of all. Like they're trying to make the witches inspiring. They're witches, you know.
yeah,
Dark witches, no. I'm not. I'm not just talking about any type of witch because in lore there's some good witches, but we're talking about some witches that delve in dark energy, dark magic. They're
yeah,
trying to present them as the good guys and the Jedi as the bad guys, from what I understand. I haven't seen the show, but that's what I'm being told, and that's what the
yeah,
clips are showing. And the images are like, no wonder this show's getting massive pushback with these witches. Because witches were in Ahsoka, witches were in Rebels. So, people, I would say this isn't like people's first introduction to witches, at least the fandom for the most part.
yeah.
But because the witches are cringe, now you're going to have questions like, why are there witches in Star Wars?
Well,
And
I don't
yeah.
even think it's that. I think it's what they wanted to do with that particular aspect, which is creating life from the Force, and that's cool. You know what I'm saying, to a certain degree, but
Yeah.
again, you are contradicting lore because, and this is within the 6 movies, because
Mhm.
The Darth Plagueis book is expanded universe too, but it is also canon because that that span of time explaining who Darth Plagueis the Wise was and how he experimented with the Force, you know, That's all true. That's coming from Sidious's mouth himself as he's talking to Anakin in
Yeah,
episode 3. That's canon. So that's true. That's from the movie's perspective. So now what you're telling me is that through dark magic and through the thread of the Force, or whatever they like to call it, they created life, and created two vessels of the Force, so to speak, before Plagueis did. Is that a problem?
yeah, it kind of is.
I mean,
Plagueis didn't do it. That's the thing. I'm with Star Wars theory. I don't know. Have you seen the Star Wars theory clip where
yeah,
Star
yeah,
Wars
yeah.
theory pointed out? Okay, so the Sith failed at this. The Jedi, can't create life from the Force itself. The Night Sisters, which are also dark witches, couldn't do this. But the strange foreign cults of random witches that we probably won't remember in a couple of months,
Who we don't know.
they can do it.
Yeah,
And
they can do it.
yeah, and that's one of the issues I had is that according to Lucas and Filoni, this is the Lucas version of magic, because in the EU and in Disney canon, magic is just dark side abilities in a magic-y way with alchemy and sorcery. But when you go
Yeah.
into the Lucasverse, it specifically states, according to Lucas and Filoni, that magic is when you take natural energy, which is the Force, because the Force is life force, natural energy. You take
Yeah.
that energy and you corrupt it to a degree where it becomes a unique source of energy. So you just change a portion of energy entirely and create a new type of energy. That's what the Night Sister magic is.
Yeah.
And in my head, if these witches created these life forms via dark magic itself, I wouldn't have much of an issue. But it's because they specifically pointed out the thread. It's the Force, but I'm sorry, like another culture, another foreign culture, they call it the thread. Cool. Because they're saying the thread did this, it's raising all these questions. It's already established with witches in Star Wars that
Yeah.
they corrupt energy to a degree that's beyond dark side corruption, typical Sith stuff. So if they were able to do this that way, like they had to literally change a portion of the Force to create life, it probably raised some questions and it'd be slightly controversial, but you could get it lore-wise. But because they are saying the thread itself, they were actually able to do what everyone else couldn't do with the Force, bend it to their will. It raises a lot of questions and brings holes into lore.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. That's true. And there's no way that people were actually going to let that slide. There's just no way that was going to be okay with anybody because there's just so much built up over time that you can't just really the story of Dark Plagueis is one that's embedded in so many people's minds, but to just at some point it starts becoming, well, how many people are going to be created from, created from the Force, fine, but how many times are we going to, kind of strike the chosen one or not chosen one chord? How many times are we going to dip into that pool before it becomes overused? I think it's a matter of the representation of DEI. What I'm saying?
Yeah, I know what you're talking. And if I'm being honest, Eric, there are people that are saying that this like throws shade at Anakin's conception. I disagree, but it's not because of representation or no nonsense arguments. It's mainly because the Force created Anakin entirely on its own. At
Yeah,
least, like in most forms of the old lore, Plagueis and Palpatine tried to create life. They failed, and the Force created a being destined to destroy the Sith entirely for like basically
yeah,
violating it. So basically, Anakin technically is a result of their actions, but he isn't a result of their creation, unless you go into some what if storylines or some old drafts of Revenge of the Sith. So I
yeah.
wouldn't say that these witches being created via the thread, I'm having a hard time taking that name seriously, is
The thread.
necessarily, yeah, I don't think it disses on Anakin itself, but what it does do is make the Sith look stupid. It does that. It delegitimizes the main villains of this entire franchise
Yeah.
horribly.
Of of whom we don't know. Like it, bro. If I don't know, with the way Leslie Headland has talked about her inspirations, she seems like someone who might be considered a floor. So, but either way, to even tease, something like that with episode 3 and 4, that's walking on thin ice, so to speak. And so,
Yeah.
I mean, it was already enough that they had Rey destroy, Palpatine again, in episode 9, sort of just in a way kind of made 1 through 6, not, it doesn't make it pointless, but it almost tries to, in a way. But I think a
Well,
lot of
no,
that's
it
negated.
does. It does make it pointless. I mean, like, imagine this. The chosen one was destined to defeat Palpatine specifically. The Sith. Well, not Palpatine specifically, but the Sith. He does it, and then the Sith come back 30 years later. And it's like, in a way, it kind of kills the stakes of the previous story. But it's like you could still make it meaningful if you had clever writing. But the sequel trilogy didn't have that. You know.
No,
Yeah.
not at all.
Like
Not
Dark
at all.
Empire had clever writing, but I pointed this out in a thread, Eric, where I stated that one of the biggest issues with Disney Star Wars is something only one, but it's a big one, is their one continuity plan. Like their plan that every product they release, for the most part, with the exception of what Star Wars Visions, is a part of their one continuity. The issue
Yeah.
with that is that now they don't have like room to like go all out with crazy concepts. Under Lucas, he had multiple continuities. He, said they were parallel universes, different worlds. His movies were one, the EU was one, the fan headcanons were one, and there were others too. There were parodies. It was like a sort of multiverse deal. But here's the thing: in that, he could have his company tell stories like, what if Palpatine came back to life from the dead and Luke Skywalker has to fucking fight him and he's being tempted by the dark side? You could have what if stories like that don't make fans question the continuity of the films because we all know this takes place in a what if scenario. This is another universe. This is what if Palpatine came back, which isn't something that happens in Lucas's world. He doesn't see it that way. He doesn't
Yeah.
think the Sith can come back. But sure, let's tell a story of what if the Sith can come back. It's like you have a consistent through line with your main stories, but you can also tell what if stories. And Disney decided that everything they make is going to be a part of one continuity. So when they want to get creative, like say witches creating babies from the thread,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, if they can do this, why can't the Sith do this? Like if the Acolyte was a what if show, I'm not saying it wouldn't be controversial, but it wouldn't be this controversial.
Not
You
this
know?
controversial.
Yeah, because we're supposed to believe that this takes place in the same world as those movies, where Palpatine and Plagueis couldn't figure it out, but random witches hundreds of years ago could.
Yeah. It doesn't make sense. Nothing about
No.
it makes sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is what it is. I'm not losing any sleep over it. I'm not tripping on it. But, you know, we'll see how things go. But thanks, Dan. Thanks for dropping in. Hopefully you come on back. Thanks for dropping in. Rebel Moon. Rebel Moon director's cuts drop this August. We are ready for those. I am ready for those films. As you know, like I touched on earlier, Zach is absolutely undefeated when it comes to dropping director's cuts, dropping alternate cuts, things of that nature. So I think that the Chalice of Blood, Curse of Forgiveness, respectively as they're called, are going to add a lot to what was otherwise two films that I think were sort of below standard for Zach. I think that they were missing a lot. There's so much of those elements to his vision that I felt were missing in those aspects of those movies. So with this one, with these two cuts coming up next, both rated R. You know, I think touting 3.5 hours per one. I think that they're going to be great, and so I'm looking forward to that. Oh, Dan, you're back. What's up?
Yeah, I'm back. My
You
connection came out, but I returned.
you're
You were
good.
saying though?
No, I was talking about Rebel Moon and these director's cuts. How I felt like these first two films didn't have that much to them. They were kind of one dimensional for a Zach film, but we know that's because they were just the PG cuts and they weren't really the full cuts where he has so much more going into those universes. So I think that these director's cuts are gonna really do good. Curse of Forgiveness and the Chalice of Blood, I think, is what they're called,
Yeah, the titles
respectively.
really roll off the tongue, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Man, these are, from what I've heard, these are totally different movies. Which in most cases, I mean, that's what that's really what all directors they turn out to be different movies. So I think that they're going to be very, very good. I look forward to them. Child of Fire, Scargiver, and so yeah, these are vastly different. I didn't even know that they were going to have different names. Chalice of Blood and Curse of Forgiveness. I didn't even know that they were going to have two different names, but here we are. So I'm ready for him. I'm ready for him. Zach is my favorite director, so that I know that he never disappoints on those. According to Collider, these new versions will incorporate both alternate scenes and previously unseen footage to justify the more adult-oriented rating. So, lots of blood and gore, sexual content, graphic nudity, language. Same thing for part two, basically. So, I think there's that. There's just that aspect of it right there. All of that, all those hallmarks that they just named right there for the R rating for Rebel Moon, those are staple points. Those are staple points in a Zack Snyder film. It's not a Zack Snyder film if it doesn't have any of these. If it doesn't have at least one of those, it's not a Zack Snyder film. It's not. You look at 300, you look at Watchmen, you look at Batman v Superman, you look at any of his work, and you'll see that. You'll see that without those are his. Now, some people call it being edgy. Some people call it. It is what it is. He's telling a story. You know what I'm saying? So, is it really him being edgy, or is it just Zack telling the story the best way he knows how? And without those elements being there, I don't think you have a Zack Snyder film. You just don't have one. And so having that PG-13 rating for a story of that nature is something that just did not work for part 1 and 2. And the ratings reflected so, the fans reflected so. And like I said, it's okay if you have a favorite director. It's okay for your favorite director to drop to drop a movie that you don't think was up to par. But me knowing Zach, I know Zach knows how to bounce back, and I know he always has something better up the sleeve. So I'm not really all that. I'm not tripping about it. I didn't trip when the reviews came out for Rebel Moon Part 1 and 2. I didn't go crazy. I was just like, I'll wait till the director's cuts come out because I know this is not all that Zach has to say.
Well, Eric, despite all the rage and pushback and controversy, you're still holding strong for old Zach, aren't you?
Always, man, always, because that's all I need. When the Joss Whedon situation went down at DC and Warner Brothers, and we saw that movie, and I saw that movie in theaters, and I walked out very disappointed. Then I went. Then the original movie came out. ZSJL came out, and I watched that movie. That was all I needed to know. I'm like, if Zach ever drops a movie where he says that there's stuff cut out of it that wasn't in the final cut, then I'm not even going to trip. I'll wait for the full cut to come out before I make any more judgments. Because now that these two are coming out, I'll be able to give a better judgment. I'll be able to actually, give my full thoughts and breakdown. But I can't do that if I only get like, half of a movie. For a Zack Snyder movie, I think for me, I think 3 hours at minimum is what I need. 3 hours minimum. If it's an hour and a half, 2 hours, that's too short for me because I'm like, I know there's more. I know Zach has more up the sleeve, and so I need the full, what I need the whole thing. I need the whole story. So that's just me. That's where I'm at with it. So I'm excited for Chalice of Blood. I'm excited for Curse and Forgiveness. I will be hyped for those first looks when they come out, and then I will drop a Rebel Moon review because I haven't dropped one today. I haven't dropped the Rebel Moon review to date, except for maybe on my podcast. I talked about it, but even then, I'm like, I'm gonna hold out judgment until there's some more to go off of. But yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at with that. Thanks a lot to the Acolyte. Thanks a lot to them for making it a trillion times harder for Rey and Daisy Ridley to actually make her return. Thanks a lot, because I actually had a sliver. Not much, Dan. Not much. Just a little tiny bit. Just a little sliver of hope.
Yeah.
That maybe Rey could come back and actually bring some cool stuff to the franchise when she's properly written, given proper development. And we've had this conversation a trillion times just about how much was missing from Rey as a character, how much they failed to give her as a character. But now, after people watch The Acolyte, do you really think people are going to shill out and get those tickets for New Jedi Order? No, I don't think so.
They were far off, from making Rey work already. And look, I was a cynical guy towards you, Eric, when we talk about this multiple times, and I kind of felt bad inside because you had a legit, genuine hope that I honestly would just mock and make fun of. Because to me, I thought, now, just no. But look, in all seriousness with you, man, if I'm being completely honest with you, if we put aside the fact that there will be a good portion of fans that'll be, and when I mean a good portion, I mean the majority of the fandom, when they see a title like New Jedi Order, they're going to be thinking, where's Luke? There's going to be a good portion that'll feel that way, whether they're into the EU, whether they're a Lucas lore guy like me, or even if they're a Filoni fan, Disney fan, whatever, they'll be thinking, where's Luke? So there's that. So even if we put that to the side, that's the big one. I'm throwing that away. When it comes to Rey, the logic, Rey is now a master, a teacher. She is supposed to be teaching her students, the next steps. How can you take a teacher and make them struggle and fail in the ways they were supposed to struggle and fail before they were a teacher in order to make their character fascinating?
Yeah, so, it's too late now.
Yeah, it's like I'm not saying teachers can't make mistakes, or they can't, I'm not saying they can be, I'm not saying that, they have to be perfect. I'm just saying that if you have Rey have her major trials now as a teacher when teaching and have her struggle to figure it out as a teacher, it's not going to be as appealing as if she struggled like hell as a student, became a teacher, and now has to share her experiences and knowledge with her students as they struggle. That's typically how I think the human species perceives triumph and earning something. So, that's the big problem. And I honestly don't blame the Acolyte, which, to be fair, I haven't seen the cringe. I've only seen photos and clips, so I probably have I probably deserve no weight in that statement because I didn't even watch it. So my words probably mean nothing. But what I mean with you, man, is that I don't even blame the Acolyte. I think the concept of a Rey movie itself, if they really wanted it to work, they would have had to wait maybe 20 or 30 years for people to maybe change their opinions on this character, maybe some new adaptations that show her in a better light. and then maybe a Rey movie that's not in the main saga, just a Rey movie would probably work. But
Yeah.
you know, right now
I
we're still reeling from the sequels. You know.
yeah. I mean, I am taking bets though. I'm taking active bets, money line, over under, gambling. I'm taking bets that I'm betting over that Rey will not be killing her Padawan for having a bad dream or trying to. So I'm taking bets on that. I'm going to be making a lot of money off that bet because I bet you the first time her student has a bad dream, she will not be raising her lightsaber. So yeah. But I mean, I'm pointing out that, and you're absolutely right on everything you said, because I know that if you go watch The Acolyte, you're just going to come back to me and be like, yeah, Eric, there's no chance. It's not going to happen for Rey. But I think it's coming at it from a point of just a properly done female character. You know, how do you write a great female character? I'm in the process of writing my own stuff. I'm writing my own books, and so I'm looking forward to the challenge of exploring how to properly write a female character. And if I had to guess a wager on how to do it, you do it by presenting her as she is, by presenting, you know, the challenges, the obstacles, and how she deals with them, how she overcomes them. And then boom, you know, that's it. Growth. Same, just like with every other, you know, character. What I'm not gonna do is start preaching. You know what I'm saying? What I'm not gonna do is, through my writing, start preaching at, which is the audience's number one complaint when it comes to a lot of these. They feel like they're being preached to. You know what I'm saying? Oh, it's just, you know, the gap, like in The Acolyte, the witches say, oh, this galaxy was not made for a place for women like us. You know, I'm like, you're not the only one in the galaxy that's struggling, that's trying to survive out here. You know what I'm saying? It's not just women. You know what I'm saying? And the way that they write,
you're giving me more reasons to be happy I didn't watch this. But
bro, you're gonna be so excited that you didn't watch it, because the writing is going to piss people off. It just makes people seem like, oh well, I'm being preached at again. You know what I'm saying? And people don't want to be preached at. The Boys season 4 is going through that exact same thing right now. The ratings are down. Right, I haven't gotten to episode 3 and 4 yet, but I've watched episode 1 and 2. But they're, you know,
I predicted this, man. I pointed it out to you. Well, not to you, but I pointed it out on Twitter. Like, I think a year or two ago. I'm like, look, the political messages in The Boys is getting a lot more heavy-handed, and I'm not even saying to like make them more subtle or anything or get rid of them. You know, the typical response. I'm saying to make sure the quality of the writing balances out the blunt messages, because if it doesn't, if it gets repetitive, if you know the writing gets typical and all you have is these messages being screamed at you, the ratings go down. And I observed them, like, okay, season 1, season 2, season 3, the ratings have gone downhill for this show. Like, look, people love it in terms of mainstream, Eric. You know, it's gotten more fans, but objectively, just looking at the views, the ratings, more people were criticizing the show since season 2, when it got more heavy-handed with each passing season. And look where we are now with season 4.
Yeah. Giga Gamer says the writing is on the wall. I don't know what that means, but I think I have a good wager of what that could mean. But yes, you are right. The writing is on the wall. It's on the wall.
Did you see the High Republic writing room, where the board, where they had all the things?
Yeah. And you know what? I'm glad Giga said that. I'm glad you said that, because I remember specifically exactly when we saw the High Republic writing room, and they were talking about all these ideas that they had. Here's what we're, you know what I'm saying? Here's what we're gonna do here, you know, and then on the board you see diversity, equality, you know, you see all these different terms, and it's just like, oh my God. It's crazy. And I'm like, why though? Why? But now
Look,
we see
I'm
why.
not against seeing Asian Jedi, Black Jedi, Indian Jedi, Japanese Jedi. I'm not against seeing all these different flavors of humans as Jedi. But
Yeah.
guys, have we forgotten the literal alien diversity in Star? Like, look, the human species is the smallest species in the Star Wars galaxy. I'm watching these movies and shows where there are less aliens than humans. I'm not happy about that.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I get it. I get it, Dan. Kavari says Rebel Moon 2 just made the top 5 worst movies of the year so far. Hey, look, I get that, but let me defend my goat. My goat, the goat Snyder did not. It's the PG-13 cut. So I'm gonna reserve my judgment for when these director's cuts come hit in August, and then I'm gonna come back to it. But hey, it's deserved though. Rebel Moon 2, both of the Rebel Moons, they were decent, but I don't think that they're not up to par with what I know Zach can bring to the table. So I can't even fault him for putting it on the worst movies of the year. I can't even be mad.
Do you need more clips of wheat being thrown in the air?
You know what? Hey, that's hey. You know what? It's all right. No, it's all right. It's all right.
That shit drove me crazy every single time. I lost my mind.
It was beautiful. Stop.
Right,
It was
yeah.
beautiful. It was beautiful.
Fair. I like the action scenes. If I want to be positive with you on the Rebel Moon movies, I like the action scenes, but that's all I can give them.
Yeah. There's a lot of lore and a lot of background context missing from Rebel Moon that isn't shown in the movies. But I think each of these movies coming up being at like 3 hours, 3.5 a piece.
Released yet? Any books? Supplemental material?
It's gonna branch out a lot.
No, I'm asking if they've released any of it yet. You know, just for anyone
Not
who
yet.
wants to know more with the. Okay, got it.
Not yet. They drop in August. They're both gonna drop in August. So we got 1 month technically, if you're not counting these last 2 weeks. We got all of July, and then boom, we're getting them in August. So yeah, we're almost at the finish line. But yeah, man, I'm going to. I got some business to take care of, so I think this is a great place to drop it off. But
later,
hey,
Eric, it was awesome having you, man.
Awesome, man. Awesome. Thank you. I will be on later tonight though for an after hours podcast, so I'm always up for the late night. I will be up tonight, so there'll be that. Cool. So be sure to tune in, all you guys, for that if you guys are in. But I appreciate everyone for tuning in. Shout out Giga Gamer. Shout out Kavari. Shout out Echo Base Network. Shout out to EBN. Them boys doing great work over there for the Star Wars community. Shout out to Dan Knight Lucas, aka the Lore Master. So I will catch you guys later, and y'all have a great Thursday, man. Be blessed.
You too.